So welcome back, Jackie. Thank you for being with us again and opening this space for for these Kōrero MiriMiri with a few different people. It's been really exciting for me, and so you're that opening gateway and portal. So I'm super grateful for that. Before we start, is there anything on your heart from this last few weeks since we talked last that feels like it wants to be spoken, or that you're recognizing in your environment or the energetics of the collective that may help serve people?
So like you, I'm feeling a lot, and but it's quite subtle, doing my own personal work and then shifting my practice, to online wānanga now and distance, doing more distance healing sessions. So I'm really super grateful for, all of my clients that have been able to help me in that transition. It was a little bit scary at first, and so I think when I first spoke to you, I just kind of gotten over that scary moment, starting to do the 12-week group online sessions, and that's now taken off now. So we're now in our second week now, and that's going really well. We're starting the next group, and but I'm finding that I'm doing a lot of personal work, like you. How you were talking about a lot of personal shifting going on, and I think that's what's really going to be a benefit for my clients, and is the more personal work that I do, the more that I can be there to support them and hold space for them. So I've got a lot more peace than what I had now that we're kind of settling into this transition.
I found for me that there was an aspect of giving away my power initially, because say like in New Zealand, they're being told to be locked down. I almost wanted to be told, like, these are the rules, these are what you have to operate within. And so that choice and that agency and the power I actually have within this environment and this current context, like I was giving that away. I was just like, I'm just going to do it this way because that's how everyone else is doing it. And that without actually having tapped in to how I need to, what I need to birth in this current online process and the process.
Well, the wānanga that we have coming up, that's like an introduction. So when I met Papa Joe, after meeting him, I wrote these TAKUTAKU, these Māori compositions, and one of them is basically like my path of when I started out to where I am now, and all of the practice and everything, and it talks about that. So it's about 3 verses long. And so I usually start off with that takutaku, that because it's an activation into my wānanga, and it gives them, they can feel it, they can understand it, where I was at then, and the process that they're walking into. So it gives them insight as to what they're opening up. I really like doing that first. And I like to teach them about KAUPARE, so how to shield themselves. I like to share, what I was just saying about the tohu, how to find a tohu when you're working in your body, how to respect somebody's body temple and their tupuna, basically how to stay safe, and how to stay safe while doing the work, how to remain in neutrality, how to work with the whatu manawa, the spiritual heart, exercises for the spiritual heart.
I'd love to know how do you hear your intuition, and how do you know what way to turn and move?
I was just writing about this today, actually, like about staying true to my pathway, and that it's about going within and having time to hear what my ancestors are saying and what my tupuna is saying. And I do that on a regular basis because of, the work that we do. What I'm finding is that my tupuna actually kind of interjecting information in my sessions now. So I'm doing a distance healing session, and I'm deeply in this meditative mode, and then I'll start to get visions on, not like the physical movie screen, but just on the inside of the whatu manawa, and of what I'm supposed to be doing next. And I've really loved that. I think because we've settled down in this transition that we're going through, and we've had time to go within, and we're a bit more quiet, it's like I can hear a bit more clearly. Subtle, not having to speak so loudly, so I get the picture and get the point. That's a big question, because there's just so many different ways in which they speak to us. So
we sort of touched upon last time the intergenerational healing, and I've found on my journey that part of stepping into doing MiriMiri was to heal some of that pathway for my whakapapa, that pain around their matakite or their path. And I was thinking before jumping on this, because we had mentioned that intergenerational healing around how at the Utapa in Taharaiti and Dannevirke, where my granddad's buried, there's all these graves that have no markings because of the typhoid that swept through there. And I was sort of so feeling into that. When this whole thing began, I was feeling into that energy and that sort of how their graves are unmarked. And we would hear that all the time whenever we went onto the Utapa, and that time is almost weaving into now as well. When you talk about or feel into intergenerational trauma, what does that feel for you?
When working with clients, I find that it's about staying neutral, and having neutrality. That neutrality is gold, to stay in a neutral space, to be able, like a blank canvas. And that's the same in MiriMiri kōrero as well. Having that blank canvas where you're having a cup of tea with somebody, but you're reflecting, back to each other's stuff. They're talking, getting everything out. And all that information is coming to you, but you have to stay neutral and, mirror that back. Or it's like a blank canvas, just be a blank canvas, hold space for them. And then it comes back at you again, and then you're just sitting with it, reflecting it back. It comes, and it's just like this constant thing that goes back and forth between you and your client like this. And, what we're going through now as an individual sitting amongst the collective fears and worries and anxieties that, there's been one night this week, I think I woke up just like, feeling the fear and the anxiety and all of this kind of stuff, but I know that it's not my stuff, that it belongs to the collective. And I just got up and I was like, I'm just going to have to shake all of that off, let those layers fall off, because it's not mine. When this process first started out, how much that freaked me out completely, was just how scared the whole collective was and feeling it. And which freaked me and made me scared, and because we're reflecting back like this, it's but the reminder of I wish I had been a bit more neutral at that time, but it is what it is. That now I can sit here now and go, okay, we've been there, done that, but the collective is feeling all of that intergenerational stuff as well. And so you're just getting like this huge, as healers, we're getting this huge double whammy, like tsunami of emotions.
So how do you see that process for us, not only in terms of the guidance we get from our whakapapa, but also the healing that we do on their behalf or with them, through them, co-creating with them?
There is a lot of generational stuff coming up because of what we're going through at the moment, for sure. Sitting with it and processing as much as I can, like, doing the personal work that I was saying, and this has got a lot to do with it. It's feeling what our tupuna felt in times past when they went through something similar, because what this is bringing up is just so much, it's triggering so much of our cellular memories, the generational memories, that it feels like it's been just having to shed layers, but it's been really gentle in how we've been moving through it. So it's subtle, it's gentle, it's I think just the awareness of that is enough to go, okay, I get it, I understand, I know what it feels like to be triggered by something, and this is definitely, triggering times past. We don't know all the stories that are there from way back of the things that our ancestors have gone through, to we're sitting right now clearing all of it and just letting things go layers by layers. And, but you don't often get that time to really sit down and do the personal work, because we're often too busy, serving others.
Totally.
That it's such a beautiful time to be able to, put into practice what we, talk about.
I often, doing the body work, it's like that feeling of neutrality. So for me, how I describe it is that I go in and then I connect in the energy, but then I back off into neutrality. But that connection, for me, it's like I'm not always staying neutral because I need to read the body in a certain way. So in that space, it's not a neutrality, it's a curiosity, and then it turns to a different neutral texture. I don't know if that makes sense exactly.
Oh, totally. Yeah.
But can you describe that process when you're doing romi or MiriMiri for someone that may be beginning on their path and not sure how to stay neutral when doing body work, when there's a reaction from a client or...
It's just not getting caught up in the emotion of it. So as a matakite, people who are clairvoyant and seers and clairsentient can feel, can touch, can smell. So when we're doing the body work, we have access to our holistic sensory, just lights up, and we have the supernatural perception where all of our senses are alive. And sometimes we're smelling, sometimes we're seeing, the stories of cellular memories, like movies, and sometimes we're smelling. So there are some people who are really super sensitive and smell, but because they can smell, they can tell you everything that's going on in the body, but based off the smell alone of the body. So there's so much that goes on when you step into somebody's world or holistic well-being, and that often can start years, months, days out. And so to stay neutral, especially for matakite, people who see and feel, we can be distracted by all the stories, and there's so many cells in the body that all of those cells carry all these stories, all these memories. And so what I like to do, which Wiki Orman had taught me, was, and she teaches in her wānanga, is to look for the tohu. So when you're starting at the feet, is to acknowledge, the person's tupuna, who they are, their body temple, everyone that they come from. But to also, after acknowledging their tupuna, to ask them, what is the tohu? So what is that haimata, that pressure point, that one point that they want shifted in the duration of that session? And then to go through the normal modality itself, but with your perception, your awareness being tuned into looking for that tohu, looking for that. Is what that does is it streamlines all of the work so that you're lifting it off by layer with each session that the client comes to. And that's why I love working over 12 weeks or over a certain amount of time, is to help people go through a transition, but to work through layer by layer, taking it off bit by bit so it's not too intense and full on. And when I first started out, I used to love it so much and see so much that I'd work on somebody for 3 hours, which is just ridiculous. I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't recommend that to anybody, but you don't want to pay attention to all of it, otherwise you're just going to be so distracted, and you'll listen to this story here, this story here, this story there, and it's just never ending. But if you pay attention to what the tohu is, what the person's tupuna are asking you to shift, then you're honouring them, and you're more likely to get the work done that they're asking you to get done. And if you focus on the stories that come with the tohu, you're better able to read the body. But when you ask for the tohu, you'll feel on your body, body scanning, what the haimata is, the pressure point, and that usually is enough to tell you what the story is. But you don't feel it or step into the emotion of all of it.
And thanks Wiki for that one.
Yeah, that served me well, that one.
Yeah.
I would, to be honest, the people that have got in touch with me that haven't been able to talk about things like that, I always encourage them to wānanga, because that is a space that you can talk, and that is what wānanga is for. It's that sacred space of learning, where we are all learning in that space. You know, like I'm learning in that space just by everything that people share, and it's all about. I remember Wiki saying how Papa Joe used to talk about. Romiromi is about facing your worst fears, facing your greatest fears, but in that is your greatest opportunity, and that's what wānanga is all about for me, is, seeing people like that come along and really express themselves. And that's what it was for me too, was, being able to share my thoughts freely, in a community of like-minded Māori and non-Māori who were interested in what Papa Joe's writings, had to say, and to share our heart and our thoughts on his words, was so special. It's just a really big part of my journey of processing my own heart and thoughts and developing my own philosophy, so that I can do my mahi now. So I would really encourage them to go to wānanga.
Was your first time receiving rumi painful?
It wasn't, but the reason it wasn't was because I was a dancer at the time and I knew how to breathe. And so I was able to breathe through it. And my first session was with Manu Koriwha from Māori Healers. Yeah, and he was so funny. I was just giggling on the inside, because I was training with him in Maurako, so when I was younger, and he was beautiful. And a part of that training, he would show us pressure points that are for fighting, but pressure points that can heal and bring people back to life. And but a part of that wānanga, he shared romirumi, and so when he went into my calves and he went really hard, and because I knew how to breathe, he started to swear because he was waiting for me to, yell out in pain, but there was nothing, and because I was breathing through it. God, he was funny. He was so funny. Really, really incredible tohunga, So you had your first session with him too?
Yeah. And it was, I can't remember if it was painful, but it was almost like for me, it only just like opened. It was like suddenly that channel was there, like, wow. But I remember before my second one, and I was driving in the car, and I just heard, "Are you ready for your life to change?" And I was like, "Yeah, wow. Bring it on." It was just like everything changed after that. Like my whole world turned upside down. But it was also like this most nourishing gift of my tupuna and that channel, and that while everything outside was shifting. But I just remember that moment in the car before being like, yeah, I've got this.
Yeah.
Do you find that some people do find romirumi painful, and how do you speak to that or explain that if they do?
How do I speak to that?
Yeah, like, so if for me, I often like to, for new clients when they're coming, I do like to say that it can be painful and give them a little explanation, just so that they're not completely shocked and expecting a like relaxing bodywork, Reiki session or something.
I know, like I've had some cheeky family that will, tell their family that they're going for a massage, and they rock up and they think they're coming for a massage, and I explain to them, this is what you. But that's what I do, is I do the same thing. I explain before we get started. Have you ever had a session before? And this is what it looks like. We will do this. I just talk through the process basically. So they've got a fair idea, and kind of wait for them to when they're ready to get on the table. And but I often do MiriMiri kōrero and talk beforehand, shifting half the stuff before they get on the table anyway. That doesn't say it makes it easier for them, but I just encourage them to breathe. Breathe in through the nose and out through the mouth.
And do you find a difference for you working between males and females, or is it fairly similar in the way that you energetically?
No, it is different. Like, just physically, the bodies are totally different. Different. I tend to work with more females, having said that. I have a lot of females coming to work with me. But I do get a lot of males coming that are ready to, let go of abusive pasts or trauma or, things like that. Or, couples who will want to come and get sessions and move through transition together. But generally, I'll work more with females. Yeah, it's good. I think it's good for couples to go through it together, so that they evolve and grow together.
Have you found that for you it's different practicing rumi in Australia than in New Zealand?
Yes, I think the country, is different. And so our mihi, our acknowledgements are different. So, being here in Australia, there's a mihi that needs to happen, acknowledgements that need to happen. And so I'll always acknowledge elders, past, present, future, traditional custodians and country. And the reason being for that is we're not at home, we're here and we still have to practice safely. And so that is one way in the mihi, to do the mihi that helps to practice safely. And the country that we're on, it influences, our work totally. The way that we work, everything. The land here is totally different to the land back home.
Totally. How do you find the textural difference for you?
Well, being back home, that's the place of my haukainga, our, tūranga waiwai. Everything is back home. So, that's, back on the East Coast, like where my family's from, that is the place that I feel the most safest in the world, spiritual sanctuary for me. So being here, away from home and practicing in another country, I'm so grateful for, I've had an Aboriginal auntie, that's I've worked with over time and over the years that I've been here. And so I've got to learn some of the ways of country, but it's not, my haukainga, it's not, home is back in, East Coast. The teachers that we've had and that we have grown with, and, like Papa Joe and like you've trained with Māori healers, I think we've both trained with Ruato. I've trained with Wiki and all of those teachers that have really poured into us. I think I'd just like to acknowledge them. Just send my thanks, my love.
Beautiful.
Probably thank you too to our clients who have been there through this transition as well.
Totally.
Their patience, that we can move through this with unwavering faith and staying true to our path and having, people that support and women like yourself, that we propel each other forward, and support each other through this time. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. I really appreciate that. Thank you, sister. Appreciate you.
For having me.
Yeah, always. I'm going to hit you up again soon.
He mauri, he mai tōka te ekiteringa o haukuri, he mana tū paipani, he mana ki mana. Tere koto mara, hei tā kā mara, whakapura. Kia whaeto, kia whaeto, kia meri whakamara. He rai raro, ki hoko.